Late autumn. Wet leaves rustled beneath his feet. The cemetery was nearly empty. Only the wind hummed through the rows of aging headstones. Along the gravel path walked a tall man in a tailored black coat. His gloves were in one hand, his posture straight, but in his eyes, an abyss. This was Richard Bennett, a millionaire and the owner of a global construction empire. To the world, he was a titan, calculated, powerful, unreachable. But here, in front of a modest marble gravestone etched with the name Emily Bennett, he was simply a broken man. She was his light, gone too soon. He placed a bouquet of white lilies on the granite, knelt slowly, and sat in silence. Only his fingers moved, nervously brushing the delicate band on his pinky finger, her ring. "You know, Emily, none of it matters anymore," he whispered, eyes fixed on the photo set into the stone. "The money, the contracts, the awards, I'd give it all up, everything, just to see you again, just once, to hear your voice." The wind picked up, plucking a single petal from the bouquet. It landed in his palm. He closed his hand around it like it was hers. Then, a sound. Richard turned. A few paces away, at a neighboring grave, sat a young boy, thin, in a worn-out jacket, knees pulled to his chest, maybe 7 years old. His hazel eyes were wide and unafraid. He looked straight at Richard, not curious, not scared, just knowing. "Did you lose someone?" Richard asked. The boy didn't answer. He glanced at the lilies, then at Emily's photo. His voice barely carried through the wind. "She's beautiful. I just wanted to see her. Just once." Richard froze. "What did you say?" The boy pulled a crumpled photograph from his pocket. Richard took it, hands trembling. It was Emily, younger, maybe 18, long braid down her back, a soft, awkward smile in a cheap dress, a version of her Richard had never seen. "Where did you get this?" he asked. The boy looked down. "My grandma. She told me she was my mom, and that she's here." "What's your name?" "Ethan." Richard crouched down to look him in the eye. There was something familiar in the boy's face, the dimple on his chin, the shape of his eyes. "Ethan, did you ever know your mother?" He shook his head. "Grandma said she died when I was really little. I only remember her perfume and a song she sang." He began to hum, soft and uncertain. "Sleep now, angel. The night is high above the rooftops." Richard felt his heart stop. Emily had sung that same lullaby, only that one. "Do you know who your father is?" The boy lowered his gaze, pulling out a worn envelope from his backpack. "I found this in a drawer. It said, 'For your mother, if you ever find her.' I thought maybe, if I brought it, she'd get it." Richard opened the envelope. Inside were childish drawings. A little house, a son, a woman with long hair, and a boy holding her hand, and a birth certificate. Mother's name, Emily Marie Carter. Father, unknown. Carter, her maiden name. Richard staggered back, disbelief washing over him. He looked from the gravestone to the boy, and the ground seemed to give way beneath him. "Why did you come here today, Ethan?" The boy answered simply. "It's my birthday. I made a wish, to see my mom. Grandma told me where to find her. I thought maybe she'd show up." Richard didn't know whether to scream, to cry, or to run, but in the deepest part of him, he already knew the truth. This wasn't coincidence. This was his son. A few days later, in Richard's sprawling, cold mansion with its echoing halls and floor-to-ceiling windows, he sat alone in his study. In his hand, a DNA test envelope. Next to him, a glass with the first whiskey he'd touched since Emily's funeral. He hadn't needed it, until now. He opened the envelope. 99.8% match. Ethan was his son. Richard leaned back in his chair, chest heaving. He saw flashes, Emily in the hospital, Emily at the window, her voice, "I have something to tell you," but he had cut her off. "Later, sweetheart, I've got a flight." Then she died. Suddenly, heart failure. He never got to hear what she had tried to say. He stood and walked to the room they'd once planned to turn into a nursery. It had stayed untouched. On the dresser sat an old music box. He wound it. The same melody Ethan had hummed. "Sleep now, angel." Richard clutched it to his chest and, for the first time in years, he wept. Later, at the group home, Ethan sat alone on a bench, sketching in silence. In his lap, a photo of Emily. The front gate creaked open. Richard entered. The boy looked up. Silence. "I was a fool, Ethan," Richard began. "I should have been there. I didn't know. If I had—" The boy's voice was small. "Are you here to take me?" Richard walked closer and knelt before him. "I'm not asking you to call me Dad. Not right away. I don't even know if I'll be any good at it. But I know one thing. I want to try. I want to be there. Every day. I want to learn how to be your father." Ethan hesitated. "Can you make cocoa? Like Grandma?" Richard chuckled through the tears. "Not yet, but I've got a chef who can teach us both." The boy smiled. "Just barely. Then maybe we can try." Richard reached out. Ethan took his hand, cautiously at first, then firmly. Together they walked down the path. Two loners, no longer alone. Spring. Everything was in bloom. Apple blossoms, fresh grass, clear sky. The same hilltop cemetery. But the air felt different now. Not heavy with grief, but soft with memory. By the gravestone stood two figures, Richard and Ethan. The boy held a bouquet of lilacs. In his other hand, a small framed photo. Him and Richard in front of their new home. Both smiling. Real smiles. They stood in silence. Richard placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Hi, Emily," he said, voice trembling but sure. "We came to see you." Ethan laid down the lilacs. "Hi, Mom," he added with a proud, innocent grin. "I'm with Dad now. He didn't know before, but he does now. He said we even have a cat. The orange one you always wanted." Richard crouched down beside the grave. "You gave me the most precious thing in the world," he whispered. "I wasn't there when you left, but I'm here now, and I promise, I'll never leave him." Ethan gently placed the photo frame on the stone. On the back, in uneven handwriting, it read, "Mom, we're a family now. Thank you for choosing us." The wind rustled the paper. A silence followed, soft as prayer. Richard stood, wiped his eyes, held his son's hand. "Ready to go? One more minute?" Ethan closed his eyes, as if listening to a melody only he could hear. "There, now I can feel it." She's smiling. And they walked away slowly, not saying goodbye. Just, "See you later." On the bench nearby, a stuffed animal and a second bouquet. The sun broke through the clouds, and across the screen, the words, "Sometimes miracles don't come when you expect them, but when you need them most."